Part 123. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 1231. Lord Snowhawk. Dragon Legend. Super Soldier. Cultivation of Rain and Clouds. Budo Supreme. King Yanjai. My neighbor is a Banshee. Xianmu Legend. According to the exact information provided by the monks of the Xianmeng League, the vicinity of the former Tianfa mountain gate of Guangfa was also a forbidden place for the Xingyu League that occupied the Yunling continent. Because there are a total of 3 water candle demon in this place, there are also an amazing number of 4-level high-level water monster lightning gulls with at least 10,000 heads. The water candle demon itself is an 8th level intermediate ancient demon beast. The truth is as high as 100 feet. The facial features have no heads at all. It is like a white candle roasted by the fire and melted, but this kind of the monster beast is very cunning and cruel, and he likes to imitate the appearance of a monk. He feeds on the monk. At that time, at the crack of the sky dome in the northern part of the Tianqian continent, Wei Suo and Shui Linger also encountered one. And according to the exact news of the monks of the Xianmeng League, the 3 water candle demon occupying here are all already with the strength of Shenqian or above. Beasts above Shenqian, even if it is Shenqian mighty, don't dare to provoke easily, because even if the magic power is stable, the Shengxuan level demon might explode, but it is several times more powerful. Even if it is usually a monster that is about the weight of Shenqian, if the self-explosion Yaden, the 3/4 Shenqian Shenneng might not be able to resist. These 3 water candle monsters occupy this place, but the group of lightning gulls is like their servant slaves. Not only will they be driven out to hunt monks back, but these water candle monsters will also absorb these lightnings. The water spirit of the water gull is cultivated. In this way, the 3 water candle demons seem to have a continuous supply of cultivation resources. Wuji Tiangong had a peace talk with me at that time. After all, it would be on my side. Since you occupy this place, it is just for you to sacrifice my true fairy. As soon as he felt that he was about to break through the real immortal, Wei Suo stopped his cultivation and collected all the remaining water demon pills on hand. With a long roar, he directly brought a rain dragon and rolling black clouds towards the already long. Without any previous traces, the orientation of Wuji Tiangong mountain gate descended. The mountain gate of Wuji Tiangong was originally a big mountain, surrounded by several hills, and there were some valleys and plains in the middle, but now, these valleys have been rigidly opened by a water candle monster to lead a passage from the big river in the distance. After the water came, it accumulated into several lakes, forming an environment that the water candle demon and lightning gull loved. Oh, gu, ah. As soon as Wei Suo landed in a mammoth manner, he suddenly startled the countless lightning gulls who were staying on the water. The lightning gull itself is named after the rapid speed of lightning, and suddenly Zhu, in general, fight towards Wei Suo. At the same time, there were 2 human-shaped white lights that twisted and appeared in the lakeside forest on one side. At this moment, Wei Suo's consciousness was splattered, and he had already sensed clearly that it was indeed the 3-headed Xian-level water candle demon. In addition to the 2 heads that appeared, the other one was still in the cave in the mountain forest. Cultivation, thinking that the light is the 2 water candle demon who appeared, is enough to deal with his uninvited guest. Hi, everyone, thank you very much for your support, and visit the hot fairy born. Seeing countless water arrows and 2 water candle monsters twisting their buttocks and pushing them fast, Wei Suo laughed, stretched his hand, and threw the thousands of remaining water demon on hand at one time. When it came out, at the same time, with a bang, like the outbreak of torrents, countless terrifying water spirits rushed out of his head instantly and turned into a water emperor god. Boom! It's just that between the water and spirit, the real element in Wei Suo's body suddenly changed dramatically and became more cohesive and sticky. There was a kind of instant transformation into a kind of divine crystal melt, every drop it's like a giant mountain. hiss. At the same time, Wei Suo couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. An extremely comfortable feeling filled his body, and even the two gods and mysterious Dharma bodies. Although this transformation is only just beginning, but at this moment, in addition to feeling that the part of the true Yuan power that has begun to transform has become more amazing, this part of the true Yuan, it seems to him that it has become amazing. The magic medicine, which nourishes and feeds the body, is instantly more than doubled. This kind of feeling is like there is a feeling that the magic medicine keeps circulating in his body and constantly moisturizing his body. This is true Yuan Huaxian, true Yuan body. A truly breakthrough true fairy has many advantages in many ways. What? The breath on Wei Suo's body exploded, the hair of the lightning gull exploded, the two water candle demon, and even the water candle demon who was still concealed in the mountain forest cave, issued a cry similar to the monk's exclamation general scream. Uh. The three-headed water candle demon shoot out, forming three white lights, desperately escaping in the opposite direction of Wei Suo. It's just so bullying and afraid. Is it too late to escape now? Wei Suo didn't move while standing on the spot. He laughed, and the multiplication sounds and the magical power of the coming came again, and all three water candle demon fell from the sky. With a clatter, Xuanhuan's ghost claws grabbed, and the three heads of water candle demon were captured by Wei Suo. Three white water candles demon were forced out by Wei Suo. The water emperor deity swallowed again. Boom. As soon as the vitality on these three water candle demon flushed out, Wei Suo only felt that the whole body was shrunk, and the breath on his body was violently shocked again. Glowing, all roaring desperately. All directions move. The clouds of heaven and earth in the sight of Wei Suo have all changed, forming a series of dragons and a godlike appearance, gathered around him as the center. Wow! Lightning strips, starlights, like a huge magic wand, whipped from a very high altitude. Well. As soon as I felt that the two gods and mysterious bodies in the body turned into two huge vortexes, they began to automatically up the spirits of the world, and Wei Suo smiled and stepped out with a fierce foot. I saw the countless rays of light disappear in the distance. The body of all tens of thousands of lightning gulls burst into a cloud of blood mist. Only a demon egg the size of a dove egg, was the water mist rolled up below rose. The emperor of the water emperor stood on the top of Wei Suo, holding three water candle demon, tens of thousands of lightning gull demon flying below the Wei Suo in the sky. Lightning and starlight hung from the endless void, while it was brighter than daylight within thousands of miles of this area, which was already an unimaginable picture, but Wei Suo did not stop. More than 10 Nabeo bags were opened by Wei Suo. Among these 10 treasures, all are filled with crystal spirit stones. Numerous spirit stones flew out like stars, flying around Wei Suo. Boom! Boom! Wisps of aura visible to the naked eye were drawn from these enchanted pill and spirit stones and merged into Wei Suo's body. Pap! 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 It's just a dozen breathing times. These spirit stones have not changed significantly, but all the water demon pill, but they are all smashed. The powerful water spirit has formed a terrible torrent, swallowed by the water emperor god, and penetrated Wei Suo's body. Boom! The whole heaven and earth seemed to be shocked, as if a star had returned to the general position. In the sky, various starlights suddenly formed two huge lightmen, which suddenly reflected in Wei Suo's body. At this moment, Wei Suo only felt that his body was washed away by a stronger water element, and he swallowed by the two divine profound Dharma bodies and stopped. This is the real fairy. Wei Suo immediately felt that the qi and blood within his own body had been completely transformed. The entire body seemed to have the power of magical medicine circulating in it all the time, constantly moisturizing the body and the Dharma. What a fairy! This is the real fairyland that all monks dream of. In one breath, the self-blood and the true element nourish themselves, which is equivalent to the ordinary monks refining and not knowing how many elixirs, so the real body of the fairy such a tyranny, Xuanhuan will be so amazing. This, and at this moment, Wei Suo was stunned for a moment, could not help looking up at the endless void above. Because at this moment, he also suddenly felt that after breaking through the true immortal, there was a trace of star vitality, constantly entering Qin's body. This little star vitality is unique to the water system. Among the stars in the heavens, there are many stars, which also contain amazing vitality of the water system, and he broke through the true immortal at this moment, but these vitality of the stars are also automatically absorbed by him. Normally, there is no need to practice. Qin, are you? Communicate the stars. Wei Suo suddenly stunned in excitement, which not only means that he is not limited to this world, but also these stars' vitality can not only add some real elements for him, but also can be used to cooperate with his dragons and stars' body quenching exercises. His. But it was not only this that made him ecstatically suffocated. At this moment, he felt that one of his real magic weapons, the mighty power of the Long River, also increased a lot in a moment, even if it had reached the power of the fairy order. It's just that. In an instant, he reacted. It was the feeling that a stronger water element washed into his body. In the final stage of his true immortal change, his flesh and Dharma body suddenly sucked in the amazing water star energy, like a torrent rushing into the body. It also greatly enhances the power of this magic weapon. The body of the true immortal, completely transformed, has become like a unique fairyland, blessed land, and began to nurture his own powerful treasure. The transformation of the Changhe monstrous volume, compared to Wei Suo's current physical body, is second to the enemy's power. The most important thing is that the power of scouring and swallowing is stronger. Then as long as there are enough resources, the cultivation speed is even more amazing. In Wei Suo's eyes, there was an excited light, and he released his consciousness with all his might. If cold electricity cut the sky 3,200 miles. He instantly felt that his consciousness now covered 3,200 miles. If any chapter content is not displayed, please visit to read. Tip: you can search for 0.academy00sy or 00sy in Baidu to visit this site. The site address is. To facilitate reading this book next time, you can click Add Bookmark below to record this reading record, and you can directly read this chapter next time you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Remember that the more updates you share, the faster. Mobile phone users, please visit Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 1232. Lord Snowhawk. Dragon Legend. Super Soldier. Cultivation of Rain and Clouds. Budo Supreme. King Yanjai. My neighbor is a banshee. Xian Mu Legend. Oh. Oh. Wei Suo flees in the endless wildness. What he is performing at this moment is just ordinary aurora escape, but when the aura flashes, it is also flying out of dozens of miles, and the gangster wind that has been stirred up has formed a piece of essence. No wonder the classics record that the true immortal, swallowing clouds and eating Xiaxia, is no longer a metaphysical description of Shenxian, but completely beyond the concept of a monk. Between flying and flying, Wei Suo felt extremely refreshed from the inside out, feeling that he was almost endlessly energetic, and every trace of real element seemed to have a kind of explosive power. And between the flying skies, all the clouds of Xiaxia gathered together, and a trace of the star's vitality automatically merged into the body. Even if the mother's true scripture is not used, and the true essence is not supplemented by the refined medicine, Wei Suo feels that he can the feeling of endless flight. At this time, Wei Suo had a little sympathy for Xantai Linglan. Although Xantai Linglan is not as good as he is against the sky, before he breaks through the real fairy, it triggers the heavenly disaster and communicates the realm of stars, but it is also a real true fairy at all, and the true elements all over the body are fairy, just like a magic medicine. Even a little if you don't practice, your supernatural power will still grow slowly. From the inside to the outside is also completely beyond the concept of a monk. Such things as true immortals are rare in any period, but Zhantai Linglan has many chances, and just after the cultivation of true immortals, it fell into his hands. But it is no wonder that in the same era, the most anti-sky characters were all walking on other anti-sky characters. Blame it only on Zhantai Linglan himself. When he saw Weizhuo at the beginning, he just wanted to kill people and win treasures. Boom. Boom. For a while, Weizhuo felt that his consciousness and the changes of the physical body and the real unit had all been matched. That is to say, his subconscious was fully familiar with the changes of his physical body and the real unit. After calling the real unit and controlling the power, he completely matched. However, he released his two Dharma bodies again. Now his Dharma body has no change in appearance compared to before. There is still a white moon wheel behind one of the statues, and countless tianhe flows in it, and a peculiar treasure tree grows behind the other Dharma body. But his two Dharma bodies exude amazing breath of true immortality. They can no longer be called Shenqian Dharma body, but should be called true immortal Dharma body. According to the records of some classics, after the breakthrough to the true immortal, this Dharma body is transformed into the Dharma body at will. This is complete backfeeding, which is equivalent to the fusion of one's own body and the Dharma body. Oneself seems to be a Dharma body. According to the relevant records in the classics, it is even more amazing to nourish yourself by completely integrating the Dharma body with the flesh body. Now Weizhuo's thoughts flashed, and he only felt that his two true fairy Dharma bodies could be melted at any time, just like his own consciousness, and he could fit in with his physical body. Yep. But at the same time, Weizhuo also felt that his two true immortal Dharma bodies seemed to be able to fly out of their own bodies and travel freely in the world. Distraction. Real distraction. Weizhuo was suddenly taken aback, his eyes filled with even more surprises. When the monk reaches the sub-ideal realm, he can differentiate a mind, which is equivalent to two purposes. One side can stimulate the spell, while controlling one magic weapon. This is also the reason why the split mindfulness is called the split mindfulness, and the monks below the split mindfulness are at least equivalent to a dozen or two in the face of the split mindfulness monks. But this kind of splitting is only equivalent to that one person can do two things at the same time, and the left and right hands can do different things at the same time. But distraction is completely different. Distraction is to completely separate a subjective conscious distraction. Even if the dignity is extinct, the distraction can still exist, and even take away. This is very different from Wang Wei's divine light Dharma and the Sword King Patriarch's Shen Nian split, because the kind of splits of Wang Wei and Sword Wang Patriarch are only partly magical and partly conscious. The Water Emperor of the Famine cultivates the sun. It turned out to be a kind of distracting skill. Weizhuo was very surprised, because during some conversations with Ling Longtian, he learned that not all exercises can be distracted, only some exercises that have something in common with the incarnation outside the ancient body can be divided into distractions, and at least you can only be truly distracted by the threefold cultivation of true immortals. Will it work? Weizhuo took a deep breath and couldn't resist such a temptation, trying to enclose a consciousness in the Dharma body with a long and turbulent volume. At this moment, light and wisdom appeared in the eyes of the Dharma body. I'm doing. Weizhuo's eyes widened in disbelief. This is a mysterious and unspeakable feeling, as if he suddenly became two by himself, with two separate heads thinking, but there are two more feelings in one of his heads. A clear feeling come out, the Dharma body's perception of heaven and earth is very different from his own perception. One person split into two people, but not the same two people. This perception cannot be described by words. It is because my consciousness is strong enough to be distracting. If it is stronger, it can still make this Dharma body like an independent me. Wouldn't it be 3 dozens by then? After froze for a while, it seemed that Weisuo, who had two heads thinking, realized that this water emperor's phagocytosis itself was indeed a method of supporting distraction, and he could do so with one weight, completely because of him his consciousness is even stronger than some true fairy triple powers, and he feels that if he continues to tyrannize, he can even make another Dharma body subjective. Try again. How does it feel to blend the two Dharma bodies into oneself? This real fairyland is an area that Weisuo has never been in contact with. Now he has just broken through. It is like a big kid who has been exposed to a big and fresh and interesting toy, and can't help but try again. Boo! With a cry, the sky shook, and I saw that the two true immortal Dharma bodies instantly transformed into countless streamers and merged into his body. UN %hashtag, UN hashtag, percent hashtag. Weisuo was dizzy, really dizzy, and the excitement was simply beyond words. At this moment, he had the first time to practice the dragon body quenching technique, and looked at the heaven and earth through the eyes of the dragon. Not only did he feel that the power in his body was stronger, and the vitality of the body was more powerful, but at this moment, he had a feeling that the world became a few times quieter than usual, and everything was clearer. This is like the unique perception of Fang Cai's true immortal Dharma body on the vitality of heaven and earth, all superimposed on his perception. Wow, ha 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 ha. Excited, Weisuo was really excited. If someone laughed at the moment, the old skin on his heels would definitely goosebumps. At this moment he felt it quietly, but he was still somewhat vague, but it became very clear. Especially the traces of water and spirit in the star's vitality have a very vivid feeling, as if tiny raindrops are floating down. At first, I only felt a touch of wetness, but now I can feel the specific shape and color. How many times is this perception clear? With the flashing of Weisuo's eyes, a golden divine pattern evolved in front of Weisuo, only spreading in the void for less than a third, and then disappeared again. But Weisuo did not stop, but continued to condense. Only a dozen times later, the golden light in front of Weisuo was released, and this golden yellow pattern was completely condensed. Wow, ha 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 ha. Between heaven and earth, Weisuo once again was filled with the frivolous laughter of goosebumps when he earned several spirit stones when he was a small free repairer in the Lingyu city. Now Chang Sun Jing and others have also handed over all the divine patterns they knew to Weisuo. Now Weisuo has dozens of divine patterns again, but the relatively simple divine patterns obtained before the heaven tribulation have been all by Weisuo engraved. This golden yellow divine pattern is the divine pattern of Wang Wei's golden holy sword. It is very complicated. Weisuo began to enlighten after saving Huang Daijun in Zihai City, but it can only be successful at most until the end. Condensing out a third, if you want to condense this pattern according to the previous state, at least 1 or 2 days of retreat. But now, it's just a kung fu that can't reach a T, Weisuo has been successfully condensed out. What speed is this? Weisuo laughed. Degrees, 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 there were echoes in the distant forests. A piece of jade symbol immediately appeared in Weisuo's hands. After being quiet for a while, we saw that Weisuo began to refine the god's lines. That's 1 or 2 T kung fu. I saw a pale yellow divine pattern in front of him. Wow, ha 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 ha, Weisuo's insignificant laughter shook again between the world and the earth. He couldn't help it, it was too clear, it was too fast. Although the one he is trying now is only one of the simplest marks of Chang Sun's Iru, but it can be condensed in such a short time, it seems that he engraved all the marks on hand. There is no need to consume too much time in the body. It seems that it doesn't take much time to comprehend the Dao jurisdiction that lists the missing crescent moon. Suddenly, Weisuo's cautious liver shivered and excited goosebumps rose. Together with Li Freehand, Weisuo has already had a lot of insights into the law of vitality of the missing month, and a painting is equivalent to having wiped a few strokes. He now has 2 true immortal Dharma bodies and has reached the point of distraction. It should really not take much time to melt into the body and feel such a sudden increase in perception. But after this sudden excitement, Wei Suo couldn't help but roll his eyes, feeling that he was actually quite shameful. Because of the Xianjin's 5-density double Dharma body, fairy root, water emperor's death, Xuanhuan, and many other reasons, his current state of perception is estimated to be similar to that of the true monk of the triple. But generally, the monks in the mid-5 years of Shenxian are estimated to be able to comprehend at least the 4-5-door avenue, but he has realized that the true immortal is equivalent to the triple of real immortals, but he only realized an ancient fierce fire Dao jurisdiction. It is really shameful to say that. If any chapter content is not displayed, please visit to read. Tip: you can search for 0.academy00sy or 00sy in Baidu to visit this site. The site address is. To facilitate reading this book next time, you can click Add Bookmark below to record this reading record, and you can directly read this chapter next time you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Remember that the more updates you share, the faster. Mobile phone users, please visit. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 1233. Lord Snowhawk. Dragon Legend. Super Soldier. Cultivation of Rain and Clouds. Budo Supreme. King Yanjai. My neighbor is a banshee. Xianmu Legend. Because it has just broken through, this real fairyland seems to Wei Suo to be a novelty toy in the hands of a big child. After trying to condense a simple divine pattern of Chang Sun Zairu, Wei Suo did not immediately perceive the Dao jurisdiction of the lack of cruel moon, but thought again and moved the real fairy body into reality. 2 true immortal Dharma bodies, above and above his head, came in and out as if crossing the gate. Hey! This perception is indeed very wonderful. It stands to reason that this true immortal Dharma body was also cultivated by Wei Suo, and it was also in Wei Suo's body. And if the true immortal Dharma body is completely transformed into the body, he seems to have a pair of eyes to see the vitality of heaven and earth. And while the imperial envoy of the real immortal Dharma body entered and exited, Wei Suo's eyes unconsciously looked up at the void above. If such a non-stop flight goes up, what would be the scene above? In Wei Suo's mind, there was a sudden idea of wanting to fly up to 9 days to see. He had never thought about this before. In the past, with his cultivation practice, he knew how high he would not fly even if he flew, but now he controls the true immortal Dharma body, but the idea has unconsciously risen. Before the sky dome was broken, it was estimated that every monk had a kind of flying to the endless sky. See if the sky dome has an end. If there is an end, what kind of idea is the sky dome above? And traveling is too empty, flying out of the sky and earth completely, flying into the starry sky outside, looking at different stars, different heavens and earth, has always been something that the powerful wants to do. This is totally the idea of going back to a higher mountain after climbing a mountain previously unimaginable. Anyway, at this moment, this thought formed a prairie trend in Wei Suo's mind. Go up and see. Wei Suo's self-enthusiasm, together, did not have any superfluous ideas, and flew directly towards the sky above. Oh! Oh! Wei Suo only used the aura of emancipation, but in a short time, he also rushed far out of the clouds above. I didn't know how long I flew up, but I felt that my body was getting heavier and heavier, and a huge force pulled him down from time to time. Wei Suo continued to move upward, and suddenly, the breath became extremely cold. One by one, transparent blade-shaped things rushed in. Monk Jindan can't stand here. Wei Suo knew that it was the 9-day gangwind, and he could feel that the power of each gangwind might be comparable to the blow of the Daiji, a magic weapon. However, this is naturally nothing to Wei Suo. Wei Suo just evolved the ancient fierce fire, A fire field was burning outside, resisting all the 9 days of gang wind, and continued to go up. Flying upward again for more than 1,000 feet, Wei Suo suddenly felt that all the air around him was a dazzling to dazzling light. A peculiar power is constantly morphing. This is Lei Gang above 9 days. It's so fierce. It seems that the ordinary divine profound power is almost here. As soon as Wei Suo entered these dazzling lights, he felt a strong and vast force that filled the heavens and the earth, like a very powerful jurisdiction, pressing from all directions. At this moment, his body felt a tingling sensation in his bones. But Wei Suo still did not stop, continue to go up. This extremely thin Lei Gang may have been able to tear the general Shenqian monk into pieces, but for Wei Suo, it was just like a large group of ants was biting him, but he couldn't bite it. Damage. The extremely disordered and complicated world and energy, Lei Gang collided in all directions, but instead gave him a completely different feeling. He felt that if he stayed here, I would probably catch some of the evolution of Lei Gang and create some Lei Gang. The spell comes out. This made him want to go up and see what it looked like. Suddenly rushing upwards again without knowing how many feet, Wei Suo suddenly felt that his eyes were dark, as if suddenly entering a quiet night sky from an extremely noisy market, but at the same time, an extremely hot, burning the feeling that his qi and blood were to evaporate immediately soaked his body. Good fellow. Real fire of the stars and heavenly fire. Wei Suo swallowed hard, only to see below him, as if there was a circle of mist, covering the world below. In this circle of mist, all the powerful thunder and the extremely complex energy are colliding. Below him, all the extremely small Lei Gang evolved, but far away, he saw some Lei Gang condensed into a giant lightning tree, falling, in some places, even it also condenses into the shape of a fish, a beast, and even the image of Daozun, constantly evolving. The stars above the head are all like the size of a wash basin, embedded in a particularly dark black sky, some are surrounded by gorgeous halos and auras, and even countless small stars fly around. See, it seems that you can pick it up easily, but in fact it is very far away. On the surface of the Lei Gang layer, there are layers of red, white, and blue flames blooming non-stop. He understands that many real fires and extraterrestrial fires are blocked by the 9-day Lei Gang and Gangfeng layers. Otherwise, the entire heaven and earth underneath will be completely transformed into flames. Let's practice the dragon body quenching technique here. Although the star true fire and the extraterrestrial sky fire could not help Wei Suo, but Wei Suo stopped, and put out a dragon shape, trying to practice the dragon body quenching technique. Because Wei Suo feels that apart from the real fire that has been condensed here, many of the stars' vitality in his perception are also as thick as you see. It seems that the next time you practice Tianlong Kungxing quenching technique, you still need to spend a little effort to fly away just a few breaths. Wei Suo's heart was excited again. Although this star's vitality is not as strong as that of Feng Wuokang's masters, it does not know how many times stronger than the following. Upon receiving this stimulus, Wei Suo couldn't help but continue to go up. It's awesome. If it weren't for breaking through the true immortals, even if the 5 peaks of Shenqian were over, it would stop there. Thousands of feet were swept upwards again. Wei Suo felt that the space around him was completely like a piece of iron, and countless confusing star powers were like a powerful magic weapon, impacting on his body. His physical body was still can resist, but the power of the true element and spells are completely torn apart. After the Tianjin tribulation, the mixed gold fragment was also taken away by Huang Daijun and others, and now it was handed over to Wei Suo. If the sacrifice was made at this moment, the pressure would be greatly reduced, but Wei Suo just wanted to see where can he rush to his own cultivation and physical body, so he does not sacrifice this fragment, but just gritted his teeth to rely on his cultivation practice and his physical body to resist. It's almost the only way. If you resist hard, you really can't get along with yourself. Lao Shaoxing hangs, he finds himself dead, and burns his own Xiaoyuan. He gritted his teeth hard for nearly 1,000 feet, and Wei Suo saw that there seemed to be a vaguely layer boundary above it, and it seemed that he could get out of the shackles, but he didn't know how many feet were far away. At this time, his consciousness was also ripped. Only a few hundred feet away can be detected, and the intense starfire and various star rays have caused his blood to decay quickly. Without staying for a moment, it is like playing with his own life. Wei Suo felt his body could bear after sinking 1,000 feet with a bitter face. It seems that with the current cultivation practice, he can only practice the dragon body quenching technique at this height in the future. I tried the dragon body quenching technique again, and it felt that the star vitality was stronger and the effect was better. Wei Suo reached out a little and pointed out the mixed gold fragments, but he wanted to try it. Now he uses all means to punch. To what extent? Laugh. In a rush, with the mixed gold fragments standing on top, isolating the pressure of a part of the star's vitality, Wei Suo was really under pressure, and shot all the way, rushing down to the natural boundary previously seen. At this time, the blood in Wei Suo's body seemed to be burning up, and every time he stayed a breath, there was no small damage, but Wei Suo was really curious, what would happen after rushing out of the upper boundary. So as soon as he gritted his teeth, he encouraged his whole body and rushed upward. The sound of bow seemed to poke a balloon. Wei Suo only felt that the powerful force from below disappeared instantly, and his body was so heavy that it was unimaginable and suddenly lightened. Ah! But at this moment, he was so scared that his face was white. All the shackles seemed to have disappeared, and he was not at all in control and had to drift into the boundless void. The familiar vitality of the world is gone, only the starry vitality is extremely complicated. He was completely out of the shackles of his own world, but with his supernatural powers, he could not control himself outside this. If it floats into the sky of too much starry sky, 100% falls. Poof, a loud noise. This moment Wei Suo was so frightened to spur a burst of vitality upward, and finally sank by recoil. I'm doing. Wei Suo was cold and sweating all over, falling down. The feeling of being completely out of control just now made him feel extremely guilty. I really rushed out of the shackles of this world, but after a few breaths, he reacted again, his eyes widened, and his heart was full of surprise and incredible feeling. It's true, immediately, Wei Suo definitely patted his head. Although there is still no way to compare with the ancient travel of great power, Wei Suo knows that in his own era, breaking out of the shackles of the world is already an extremely remarkable thing, and is the first step in the world. Call out. Wei Suo flew through this extremely high altitude for a while, but his excitement was not calmed, and suddenly he heard only a strange burst of sound, a dazzling stream of light, rushing down in the distance ahead, boom, straight into the Ligang layer below. A huge circle of power exploded, and huge pillars of lightning jumped out. Huh, what is that? Wei Suo responded in an instant, it was just a meteorite falling, and at this moment, he also saw at a glance that there was a strange light flashing in the sky. If any chapter content is not displayed, please visit to read. Tip: you can search for 0.academy00sy or 00sy in Baidu to visit this site. The site address is. To facilitate reading this book next time, you can click Add Bookmark below to record this reading record, and you can directly read this chapter next time you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Remember that the more updates you share, the faster. Mobile phone users please visit. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 1234. Lord Snowhawk. Dragon Legend. Super Soldier. Cultivation of Rain and Clouds. Budo Supreme. King Yanjai. My neighbor is a banshee. Xianmu Legend. Among the power caused by the fall of the meteorite, that glory is like a rock, motionless, just shining quietly. Wei Suo felt a shock in his heart, and immediately started the whole virtual footwork, which was faster than the falling meteorite. In an instant, it was less than 10 miles away from the strange brilliance. This is. Wei Suo was shocked in an instant, because he saw that the strange huaguang seemed like a silver jade rune. If there is a silver jade rune suspended in the wilderness, that's fine, but now the silver jade rune is at the very top of the Jushin Ligang layer, which is almost out of the Jushin Ligang layer. There is such a silver jade floating in this place, but it is really strange. Just when the figure flashed, Wei Suo was not far in front of the silver jade rune. A strong breath of true immortality suddenly swept through. Yuchenzi broke through the true immortal, wanted to go to 9 days, stopped here, unable to go on again, stayed for a few days, felt the change of Tianhuo Ligang, created a technique, and was later confirmed by Daiyu. At a glance, Wei Suo saw a row of writing on the surface of the silver jade rune. Wei Suo was speechless for a while. This silver jade charm turned out to be left by a monk like him who wanted to rush to the sky to see after breaking through the true fairy. Then I'm better than him, I'm much taller than him. For a moment, Wei Suo couldn't help but get a little proud. But when the eyes stayed on the silver jade rune again, Wei Suo felt a little embarrassed himself. Embarrassed, hey, he smiled, and his face was hot. A looming pale red light surrounds this piece of silver jade. The power of leaving this piece of jade is using some kind of jurisdictional power to fix this piece of silver jade here, and it seems to be able to turn around. Ligang's breath, constantly replenishing power, so that this jurisdiction is immortal. Such a method, Wei Suo is too far away. Compared with this man's method, we now only understand an ancient fierce fire domain, but only rely on the flesh to resist Wei Wuzuo, and he is a bit conscious that he is a well-developed four-legged, simple-minded turtle. It seems to be striving to be stronger, to understand the law of vitality more, and to understand the powerful jurisdiction. Wei Suo wailed with embarrassment. Although at present, he really can only withstand the path of physical sanctification pointed out by King Yu Emperor, he can withstand the future catastrophe that he will face in the future. The power of jurisdiction is too violent. Moreover, using the mystery of the vitality, some of the evolved powers are indeed impossible for the flesh to be, and it is also a supreme weapon. I feel the change of Tianhuo Ligang, I don't know what kind of technique was created. Wei Suo stretched out his hand and directly broke through the power of the jurisdiction surrounding the silver jade rune, grabbing the silver jade rune in his hand. This guy named Yuchenzi flew to this height after breaking through the true immortal, and left such a jade symbol, obviously also a bit proud. Wei Suo intuitively this technique should not be simple. Among the strengths of heaven and earth, the power is the strongest, nothing more than thunder and fire. I watched the thunder and fire exchange, and met each other, and saw several meteorite sky fires fall. Chances coincidence, realized this technique. It's such a technique. Wei Suo suddenly felt a little embarrassing again. The same true immortal, his feelings in the vitality jurisdiction are really too many people, so he had to catch up. Judging from the remnants of the silver jade rune, it is at least 30,000 to 40,000 years old, that is to say, this dust should be a monk from 30,000 to 40,000 years ago, and has kept this jade rune to this day. The technique recorded in this piece of jade, this Yuchenzi, is named Yehuo Ligang sword. This technique turned out to be a technique that blends sky fire and Ligang, and possesses both the power of sky fire and Ligang. And the most peculiar thing is that this technique is mainly not based on the power of evolution, but on the power of attracting sky fire and Ligang. That is to say, the use of this technique can continuously attract the surrounding sky fire and Ligang to form a thunder fire sword, and the more sky fire and Ligang attract, the more powerful the power will be. According to the principle of this technique, as long as you are really able to withstand the consumption, the energy source will continue to attract to sky fire and thunder gang. The power of this thunder fire sword will be more powerful and endless. This technique is really amazing. If it is in the ground and the sky, the sky fire and Lei Gang that can be attracted are still limited, but in this 9-day Lei Gang layer, especially in this 9-day Lei Gang at the top of the layer where thunder and fire intersect, it is really unimaginable to cast this spell. It was really like a deity, and the surrounding Lei Gang and Tianhuo were like magic instruments, and they could be carried at will. Can't you blow it yourself? For a time, Wei Suo couldn't help whispering this sentence. Because if this technique is the same as what this dust said, then if you cultivate yourself, wouldn't it be equivalent to becoming a in the sky, who can beat yourself on this, let alone a true fairy? The monk, even if it is the true cultivation of the triple, may not be able to beat himself on this. While continuing to drive towards the direction of Luoju wasteland in the 9-day Lei Gang layer, Wei Suo took a closer look at the spells recorded in this accidentally obtained jade rune, but after reading most of it, Wei Suo was speechless. 2. How to read this technique is not fake, mysterious, and reasonable. Your sister. After a period of less than the incense stick, Wei Suo understood this technique, mobilized the true element, and acted according to the law. I saw the sound of the sound, the vibration of the void, and the shock of a terrifying energy. On his right hand, countless Lei Gang and Tianhuo gathered at an alarming speed. A few hundred feet in a circle seemed to be evacuated into a vacuum. A fiery red sword formed like Tianhuo and Lei Gang's temper was formed for more than 10 feet. And Wei Suo continued to act according to the law, just like a real exchange of thunder fire. More and more thunder fire gathered into the fiery red sword formed in his right hand. The fiery red sword became longer and longer. Prestige, it can be more and more terrifying. On the surface of the sword body, there are fiery red lotus flowers blooming non-stop, and there are golden yellow lightnings blooming like sword gas, with dazzling light. This technique, Yuchenzi, does not boast of anything. It is indeed possible to continuously gather 9 days of thunder fire. The monk who can control this technique is indeed a heavenly in these 9 days of Lei Gang. The horror that could not be expressed against in Wei, if Wei Suo usually got such a spell, maybe he would be happy, but now he compares himself with this dust, but he is unconsciously depressed. 2. People have learned a strong method here. My perception may exceed that of the true fairy of the triple fairy. Anyway, I have to learn something. Wei Suo had been watching when he was flying up. In the distance, the thunder light in the city of Lei Gang transformed into various shapes, showing the power of heaven and earth. 2. The fusion of thunder and fire, the law of vitality of this technique makes both Lei Gang and sky fire coexist. This dust, it certainly has a very deep attainment to the thunder system and the fire system. Thunder fire, yes If the of the sky fire can bring Lei Gang's divine power again, wouldn't that power be stronger? Since ancient times, the power of monks, the enlightenment of heaven and earth, the comprehension of decision-making, many of them are the whim under the accumulation, and the sudden epiphany, and now, in Wei Suo's mind, there is a flash of light, and the light in his eyes shines. Lei Gang and Zhenhuo are in themselves the most lethal to the mind and consciousness, especially Lei Gang, which is permeable and more permeable. Dongtian Zhenhuo itself can only bring up real fire. If it can also bring up Lei Gang, the lethality of God's consciousness may be more than doubled. 2 in 1. It is extremely difficult to change the technique, especially to bring a completely different law of vitality, but now Wei Suo has the feeling that he has accumulated to a certain degree and intuition he can do it. Laugh. A spirit of water spirit rushed out of his body, forming a transparent water ball, and continued to flow towards the Luoju wilderness, and Wei Suo sat up in it, in the 9 days of Lei Gang layer, closed his eyes and participated enlightenment. Boom. Wei Suo motionless with his eyes closed, but outside his body, from time to time, an invisible ripple was drawn, bringing out a raging sky fire. I don't know how long it has passed. Suddenly, with the invisible ripples drawn out, Lei Gang outside Wei Suo has changed, forming a series of lightnings. Soon, when the lightning struck out, All the sky fires were burning. In the end, the two disappeared at the same time, but there was a more terrifying atmosphere, the mercerizing of red and gold, like a thunder fire sword that Wei Suo had previously transformed. Wei Suo's eyes suddenly opened. There was no change in his whole body, but when he opened his eyes, suddenly in the faraway void, gold and red appeared faintly. Divine light. It's done. Finally, it's not shameful. Wow, ha ha ha. The expression on Wei Suo's face was obviously dumbfounded, but he immediately jumped up and laughed violently. Without a master, Dong Rule's hole of imaginary fire and Yehuo's lay fire sword left by the dust, the two men's many perceptions and control of the mutual existence of void, real fire, and thunder fire, were perfectly combined by Wei Suo, creating out of his own way. Now his Rumangmong and Dongtianshan fire have not only been able to merge real fire, but also brought out the powerful Ligang power. Rule Shenmang is also called Rule Shenmang, but this whole of Tianshan fire can no longer be called Shenhuo fire, at least it must be Dongtian thunder fire, but it seems a bit tacky to call thunder fire. What is the name? For a time, Wei Suoran can't help but start thinking about changing the name of this spell. Although it is still equivalent to standing on the shoulders of Dong Rule and Yuchenzi, this step is taken, but creating his own law, this step represents a completely different state, just like the shackles out of the world. Extraordinary. If any chapter content is not displayed, please visit to read. Tip: you can search for 0.academy00sy or 00sy in Baidu to visit this site. The site address is. To facilitate reading this book next time, you can click Add Bookmark below to record this reading record, and you can directly read this chapter next time you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Remember that the more updates you share, the faster. Mobile phone users, please visit Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 1235. Lord Snowhawk. Dragon Legend. Super Soldier. Cultivation of Rain and Clouds. Budo Supreme. King Yanjai. My neighbor is a banshee. Xian Mu Legend. Grandma, it's too much. 9 days above the Ligang layer, Wei Suoba grinned and shook his head for a while. After introducing Dong Grula and Yuchen's insights and creating new techniques, Wei Suo started other ideas, and wanted to use the Void Taoists, Void Ancients and other techniques to create new techniques. Not to mention anything else, if the path of the void can be merged with the whole void footwork, or the ego heart sword, and the spells in the missing moon, then the supernatural power does not know how much can be improved. However, after Wei Suo tried it, he still found his state was a little bit worse. My current state seems to be just walking, but this level is at least to run and jump again. To achieve this level, at least it is necessary to fully understand the jurisdiction of all the spells on hand. Hey! Wei Suo's expression is very rich now, but after shaking his head, he smiles a little proudly. Because he can be sure that he understands all the powerful laws of the power on hand and exerts the strongest power of the jurisdiction. This day is not far away. Try this void sky cut of the void Taoist. I don't know if I can make it out. After trying a few more brand new ones like Shenlamang and the brand new Dongti and Shenhuo that hadn't figured out a name yet, Wei Suo stopped, and once again carefully understood the strongest technique he got from Zantai Linglan: act in accordance with the law. In just a moment, Wei Suo only felt that his consciousness was stretched to a state near to the limit, and there was a feeling that consciousness would collapse if he continued. At the same time, a large amount of true elements flowed out of the body and spilled into the void. Laugh. In the heaven and earth in front of him, there suddenly appeared a gulf, a huge transparent rift. All the Ligang and Tianhuo in front of him were like a breakwater, and all of them rushed into this huge rift. Your sister. Wei Suo couldn't help shouting. This void sky can only be exhibited if the true immortal is more than 2 times cultivated. He successfully exhibited it. But now the real element in his body has also gone to a small half, and the consciousness has just reached the limit. There is a feeling that he will be swallowed by this technique. With his current truth and consciousness, he has only just been able to exhibit this technique. It seems that the records of the Void Taoist are still modest. The ordinary double of the true fairy is definitely not acceptable. At least the triple of the true fairy can withstand it. Unfortunately, he didn't bring the Yangtze bird with him, otherwise he would definitely do more with less. Next, Wei Suo stopped at a place above the 9-day Ligang layer and practiced the dragon body quenching technique with all his strength. He had made up his mind that as long as he was free, he would build a cave above the 9-day Ligang layer. At that time, it is not only his own practice, it is more beneficial to realize Ligang and Xing Chen vitality. Both Yangtze bird and Qingluan are estimated to have great benefits. I don't know how much better my physical body is now. After continuous practice for nearly a day and night, it was considered that he would rush to meet with Ling Longtian and other people at the same time. Wei Suo stopped before, and he used the virtual method of the cave and obtained from the Ligang layer of the 9 days. The black plum bodhisattva's annihilating air pestle drove towards Luoju wasteland continuously. Breaking through the true immortal, under the infiltration of the blood and the true element like the magic medicine in his body, his physical body has also changed a lot. Coupled with this continuous cultivation, at this moment he only feels that every breath is full. The fragrance, such as absorbing the aura of the top elixir, has an unusually lively and splendid sensation everywhere in the body, and the entire body has an unusually pure, crystal-like sensation of emitting immortal light. Wei Suo also tried it. Sure enough, under the hidden breath of his non-casting technique, the fairy light and the radiant light radiated from his body, and an auspicious and holy moon was formed behind him, and there was a treasure tree inside. The swaying life is the real fairy tale. Yep. For a while, Wei Suo was suddenly startled again when the meeting place he had previously agreed with Ling Longtian, Jia, and others, his eyes flashing with surprise. He felt a clear flow of heaven and earth, all converging in one direction. This is obviously a monk who made a breakthrough and absorbed the world's vitality and formed such a flow. However, this volume of suction is not only Jindan, but someone at this time broke through to Shenzhen. It's them, it's Li Freehand. Wei Suo now breaks through the true immortal, and one step is at least 500 or 600 miles, plus the 3,000 hundreds of miles covered by the consciousness, almost just down. His consciousness has been swept, and the prescription position stays an indigo blue iron ship is Ling Longtian and others, and at this moment it is his freehand brother Li, who is breaking through Shenzhen. Boom! Wei Suo suddenly looked like a falling star. Within a few rises and falls, it was already less than 300 miles from the iron ship where Ling Longtian and others were located. Wei Saw, hurry! He has signs of flesh. Almost as soon as Wei Suo fell, Ji Ya, Han Weiwei, and others immediately shouted anxiously at Wei Suo. And Wei Suo just glanced at it, seeing the panic on the Shentai ship, he knew that his rabbit brother was an inexplicable breakthrough, and everyone was not prepared. Now Li Freehand is also in a hurry. When he saw Wei Suo landed, he was an expression that didn't know how good it was, and he couldn't understand it at all. His hands were scratching here on his body, there he was scratching, and he kept screaming, "Brother Rabbit, this what's going on, this aura is very comfortable, very good, how can it feel wrong? What should I do?" Wei Suo really wanted to cry without tears. When this rabbit brother was definitely a Shenzhen breakthrough, he felt that Jin Dan's chi for breaking the wall was very useful, and he desperately absorbed it, but his head didn't understand that this kind of chi was absorbed more than that, it was to be woody. Others are trying to absorb less, but Li Freehand is desperate to absorb. My true fairy blood and true UN, I don't know if it's useful, to arrange the chemical jade pond, I don't know if I can't get the materials together, holding the attitude of a dead horse as a living horse doctor, Wei Suo stretched out his hand. He pulled out a mouth of blood in his hand, and a strand of true yuan, dissolving a strand of his blood into the body of Li Freehand. It works. What brightened Wei Suo's eyes was that his magical medicine like qi and blood clearly played a role, and once he hit it, a tremendous amount of essence radiated from Li's freehand body. The breath of change was contained in an instant. I don't know whether Wei Suo itself has undergone the woodification of the flesh, which contains the power of making the jade pond, or whether it can rely on a large amount of true fairy blood and true elements to prevent the woodiness of the flesh. Anyway, it is only a dozen breathing time. Everyone was completely relieved, feeling that Li's freehand fleshing had completely stopped, and his body exuded the unique form of Shenqian Mighty, and the flesh had begun to metamorphose. Bunny brothers, I really want to thank you, I'm fine. And Ziya Wei seems to have improved a lot. Li Freehand is also very excited, rubbing his hands non-stop. Congratulations to Wei Dai for being a real immortal. Yuanyin's ancestors and Chang Sunjing and others looked relaxed, and immediately congratulated Wei Suo, and everyone saw it now. Even some of the brilliance is reflected on his body, which is different from others, and there is a breath of fairy everywhere. Stop. Yes, I may, you idiot. You are all saved, and you have to save me. Stop it, idiot. At this time, Zantai Linglan's powerless screams kept ringing and came out from the cabin. Haha, Wei Suo swept his mind and understood the whole story, and couldn't help laughing. It turns out that Yezime has been photometrically transformed by Purdue God, but is constantly exhibiting the photometric transformation of Purdue God that has not yet been transformed into Zantai Linglan. It's really a fairy. It's amazing. Han Wei was also very curious about the real fairyland, couldn't help but pinch a few times on Wei Suo's body, but his face was still active with Lingyu City and Wei Suo. She wasn't very good. Hey, do you want to practice with the real immortals? Try the taste of real immortals. Wei Suo saw the uprising and couldn't help but squeeze his eyes towards Han Wei, secretly heard such a sentence. Death rogue. Han Wei's ears suddenly turned red. Death profiteers. Ling Longtian was suddenly black again, and he wished to kick this shameless man out. Brother Rabbit, what's wrong with you? But at this moment, what surprised Wei Suo and them at the same time was that Li Freehand's body suddenly had a strange energy fluctuation. Li Wei Suo stopped when he heard Wei Suo's cry, his body's vitality fluctuated, and some embarrassed Han smiled. Brother Rabbit, I feel like our grey moon has risen. Change, want to try? Why, is it inconvenient here? Grey moon? Has it changed? Wei Suo froze, then his eyes widened and nodded immediately. Convenient, you just have to hit the void, don't mess things up. Okay, then I gave it a try. Li Yi completely listened to Wei Suo's words and nodded. With the sound of boom, an eerie wave of vitality exploded in the void in front of him. A long grey-black crescent moon shone in the void. Bursts of violent shaking and rumble made the indigo-blue iron ship tremble. A bitter look appeared again on Wei Suo's face. This round of grey-black meniscus looks similar to the normal column-deficient crescent moon, but he sees it clearly and feels it very clearly. This round of grey-black meniscus is full of strips. Dafa pattern is full of unimaginable shock power. This list of the real power of the crippled moon is abruptly, within an instant, the shock does not know how many times the void, destroying the strength rules of the opponent's spells and magic weapons. Li Freehand has actually evolved this avenue of imperfect moons. Although Wei Suo has evolved himself, with this freehand evolution of Li, he does not need much time to evolve this avenue of law of the supreme attack, but anyway, he is already comparable to the true fairy triple. It was a shame again, one step behind his rabbit brother in this technique. If any chapter content is not displayed, please visit to read. Tip: you can search for 0.academy00sy or 00sy in Baidu to visit this site. The site address is. To facilitate reading this book next time, you can click Add Bookmark below to record this reading record, and you can directly read this chapter next time you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Remember that the more updates you share, the faster. Mobile phone users, please visit. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziyi. Chapter 1236. Lord Snowhawk. Dragon Legend. Super Soldier. Cultivation of Rain and Clouds. Budo Supreme. King Yanjai. My neighbor is a banshee. Xianmu Legend. After being one step ahead of his rabbit brothers, Wei Suo was ashamed and brave, and began to perceive the Dao jurisdiction of this missing month. The general technique and confronting the enemy are pure power collisions, but the deepest background of this lack of crescent moons is a sharp shock that directly destroys the magic circle and destroys the core of the other party's power. This is like a person wearing a thick armor, but not destroying the armor at all, directly destroying the flesh inside. No matter how thick and strong the armor is, it is useless. So fast. After seeing Li Dai's exhibited Dao jurisprudence and sensing the law of the original source of vitality, Wei Suo did not spend much time. The Shentai large ship continued to move forward for less than 4,000 miles, away from Yazime, and when the entrance to the ruins mentioned by Xantai Linglan was nearly 1,000 miles away, Wei Suo had already realized the avenue jurisdiction of the missing month, which surprised the witch goddess and others. Because the power of this avenue of imperfect moon avenues is extremely amazing, so the witch goddess and Xuanhuan ancestors and others are fully enlightened, but at this time there is still no eyebrows. There is really no way to compare. My body estimates that the magic power of the true double can be resisted. The triple magic power of the real can't support it. After evolving the Dao jurisprudence that lists the missing months, Wei Suo finally had a clear understanding of how arrogant he was. Because any of Wei Suo's previous spells can't even touch his own flesh, and the power of the Dao jurisdiction in this missing month is more than double the power of the Dengxian jurisdiction. It should have been a true fairy who crossed a level equal to the double weight of a true fairy gave a full blow. And Wei Suo realized that his own flesh could barely resist, no matter how powerful. Just there. At this moment, it was already the Luoju wilderness mentioned on the map before the sky dome collapsed. It was a plain with a radius of 7 or 8,000 miles. Wei Suo and others just discovered at a glance that they immediately discovered what Yazime and Xantai Linglan said, a plain barren woodland for more than a decade. There was no aura or mist in the barren wood forest at all, and it was flat to the extreme, and the trees were sparse, with a clear view over the sky, and you could see the inside, and with Wei Suo's perception, you could not feel any strangeness at all. Zime has already been completely quantified, and at this moment he is even working very hard to valorize Xantai Linglan, otherwise Wei Suo and others will even suspect that he and Xantai Linglan are telling lies. According to Yazime, they also searched this area continuously for decades, and found nothing. Later, a monk discovered that this barren wood forest seems exactly the same as it did decades ago. Only then did this place feel strange. But all the trees in this barren wood are also completely real, and there is nothing unusual in the ground. Afterwards, a monk accidentally found that some of the trees inside could actually absorb the true elements. Among the more than 10 Iraqi trees, the true UN is infused, but it will reveal an ancient teleportation circle. After the ancient teleportation circle was revealed, even the heavenly 9 gods and others did not know whether the ancient teleportation circle emerged. This method, even the old man in the green robe and Ling Longtian have not heard of it. It must belong to the Baron or a powerful unique method. After the time for a cup of tea, the unique aura of the teleportation circle flashed, and Wei Suo and others appeared in a square altar-like ancient teleportation circle. The entire body of this ancient teleportation array is carved from a dark green crystal, surrounded by 4 white prismatic crystal pillars with a height of 1 person. The white brilliance emitted by the crystal pillars condenses into a small mysterious light symbol. Like the fireflies in the summer night, flying in the ancient teleportation circle. His eyes were just swept away, and Wei Suo and others all looked surprised. Although I have heard Yezaimei and Zantai Linglan have said before that the interior is extremely vast, but the scene in front of me is still more amazing than Wei Suo and others imagined. At this moment, there was really only one big character in the mind of Wei Suo and others. In front is a plain covered with blue rocks, and at the end of the plain is a mountain with a height of at least 5 or 6,000 feet. The height of the 5 or 6,000 feet alone is nothing. In the wilderness, such a mountain is not without it, but the key is that such a mountain range, even with Weizhuo's eyesight, can't even see at both ends. To the end. The escape light of Wei Suo and his colleagues, before such a huge mountain range, looked very small. A mountain range of this height and such a continuous length really gives people a sense of unreality. I just feel that such a mountain range cannot exist under normal circumstances. Is this in a unique space? Han Weiwei and Shui Linger glanced at each other, and they couldn't help saying this, looking at each other. Even with their two cultivation practices and notifications, they feel that the world's vitality is somewhat different from the wild wilderness outside. For the unique airspace created by man, they are all shadowed. It was because of the change of the Sheijing space before that they had to follow Wei Suo this time, otherwise they would not be able to stand it if they had to come back again for more than 200 years apart from Wei Suo. Ganjiame, Senior Xuanhuan, how do you feel? After seeing the huge scene before him and initially surprised, Wei Suo's expression was also very strange. Because of the vitality of heaven and earth in this place, whether it is Leigang, Tianhuo, or the vitality of stars, it seems to be much thicker than the wild wilderness outside. And at this moment, although he also saw a lot of glow in the huge mountain range, and felt a lot of strong vitality fluctuations, but he can be sure that this is not because of the prohibition but the power remains, because whatever the prohibition he and Wei Neng, it is impossible to spread these vital forces so evenly, filling such a huge area. This should not be a unique airspace, but it feels like moving a huge piece of land to a very high altitude with a big ban. The ancestor of Xuanyan and the witch goddess gave Wei Suo a glance, and both smiled bitterly. A moment, how do you feel? Butu, this is one of the barons of the baron. Ling Long Sky took a deep breath, the golden light flashed in his eyes, and said extremely directly. What does Butu mean? Green Man and Han Weiwei asked the first one. It's the cave house of the baron, just like the Xuanyan ancestors and witch goddesses just said, using the big forbidden to move a huge piece of land to a very high altitude. Going up again, it should be the Zhushangong wind layer. Long Longtian looked at Wei Suo and Han Weiwei and others with a somewhat ugly explanation. In our era, it is said that the Aborigines established 3 such floating pontoons, all of which were directly photographed by little stars, or heaven and earth. At the time of the cracking, some continents flew into the void to establish. Dongfu built directly with stars. Wei Suo had a dark feeling in front of him, and the means of this barbarian were too cruel. So, this place is one of the old nests of the barbarians. Han Weiwei also suddenly froze. The barons were originally from the Hiwa continent for generations. The Hiwa continent itself does not see the sun for most of the year. When some of the barons were able to build Dongfu in order to cultivate and refine things, they all built Dongfu at a very high altitude. Afterwards, the first ancestors of the Aborigines established a total of 3 such floats. Ling Longtian took another deep breath before slowly saying, this float is indeed equivalent to their old nest, because this the entire Bulletin too, not only they built a lot of big forbidden caves, but also equivalent to an incomparably huge magic weapon, floating city, can control the movement. Can control the movement, is it not equivalent to taking a city to suppress people? Wei Suo suddenly rolled his eyes again, and called your sister in his heart. This pair of enemies rises up. If a person drives in such a place, and suddenly comes down, countless big bands are brought down. Yes, This kind of floating turret was killed by us in the battle between the Baron and us before the Biwang battle. During the Battle of the Biwang, they also moved a buoy to the vicinity of Biwang, and it was put away by the Ban of Baigong. Before, we only knew that there were 3 such buoys in the Barbarian. We found that the Barbarian had all 3 of them. As for the found ones, they were all broken. Only this one, I didn't know where it was before. Ling Longtian glanced at Wei Suo and said. Wei Suo was speechless for a while, only to feel his mouth dry, and swallowed hard. The meaning of Ling Longtian is self-evident. Cloudling Mainland and Tianqian Continent were the last bases of the spirit and some monks' powers, but this floating pontoon was already here, but the spirits did not know anything about it. It also seems to be fortunate that the Ling clan used the Baihuang to force the Huan clan to show up and fight immediately, triggering a super war. Otherwise, if the Huan clan is allowed to run for a while, the Ling clan may not even fight. After a long time, we touched the old nest of the Barbarian. The old man in the green robe finally reacted completely, and cried desperately, "Ah! It's too scary, don't go in, hurry and run." Run your head. Wei Suo nodded at Ling Longtian, and Ling Longtian took the lead and flew towards the huge mountain range ahead. If there are still powerful aristocrats, they would have been born a long time ago, and it's clear that there has also been a terrible battle in this float, and it's hard to say who wins or loses. Can survive. If no one comes in, it is estimated that you should never want to be born. But the most important thing now is that Tianzhu Shenzhen and others do not know what kind of place it is, and they are eagerly exploring the treasure. In particular, the King Shenlan also inherited the inheritance of the Barbarian. Perhaps there is exactly what the Barbarian who provided this lineage can survive. I am afraid that a single thought can make the king of the barn become a puppet. What kind of thing? If any chapter content is not displayed, please visit to read. Tip: you can search for 0.academy00sy or 00sy in Baidu to visit this site. The site address is. To facilitate reading this book next time, you can click Add Bookmark below to record this reading record, and you can directly read this chapter next time you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Remember that the more updates you share, the faster. Mobile phone users, please visit Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 1237. Lord Snowhawk. Dragon Legend. Super Soldier. Cultivation of Rain and Clouds. Budo Supreme. King Yanjai. My neighbor is a banshee. Xian Mu Legend. According to the knowledge of Ling Longtian, this one of the buddies of the famine was built with small stars and continental fragments, at least 1/10 of the size of the continents Yunling Continent and Tianqian Continent, which is unimaginably large. It is not comparable to the prohibition like Xiaoshenjia. Underscore. And just when Wei Suo and his party decided to intercept at least Tianzhu Shenzhen and others and head towards the huge mountain range, another prescription place in Luoju wasteland was gathered. Besides Tianzhu Shenzhen and others, another group of monks. Most of this group of monks sat cross-legged on the ground, the medicine on their heads rolled, and it seemed that they were relying on Lingdan to restore the really consuming primitive. There are more than 40 monks in this group, of which more than 30 are all Jindan monks wearing the same blue robe, and the 5-headed are all Shenqian monks with a divine breath. Among them, the one with the highest cultivation and the strongest breath is a white-robed monk who is dressed as a middle-aged scribe. If Wei Suo can see this person's face at this moment, he will be very surprised, because the skin on this person's face is all it is, a faint rune of indigo blue, which is very similar to the mysterious power captured by the four-armed baron. At the moment, the white robe dressed by the middle-aged scribe was looking at the front with a blank expression. In front of him, there is a step made of peculiar dark blue jade. This step is really amazingly wide. Every step has the height of an ordinary person, and the length is about 40 or 50 feet, and a dozen steps up, it is not submerged in the dense white fog, it is difficult see the scene above. To give people the feeling, this kind of step is not to walk at all, but to the heavenly with huge body. It didn't take long for a sudden flash of light in the white mist, a green divine light appeared, and in a blink of an eye, before the powerful white robe, it was a young Xianda wearing an emerald green vestment. Yes, it looks like he is only 27 or 8 years old. Master, this mountain is really unimaginable. I have been skimming upwards for more than 10 miles, and the steps are still upwards. I don't know how tall, but there is a circle of white spiritual light standing there, very crystal clear. It was like a huge magic mirror, and like a door, but I didn't dare to try it. As soon as the young Xianda Neng showed up, he immediately saluted the white robe and said, "Okay, wait for the elders to adjust their interest rates. Let's go and see them together." The white robe with the indigo blue flowing patterns on his face frowned. The young Shen Xianda Neng, who was wearing the emerald green vest, nodded and was about to step aside. Suddenly, the white robe's face changed suddenly, and he turned and looked back. How? The other 4 gods Xiandanenge, not far behind the white robe, were all taken aback, and all turned around. I saw a thick fuchsia fog behind the monks. And just as these 4 gods Xianda Neng turned around, a strange burst of air broke out inside. Why is it so weird? One of the old Dao wearing ivory-colored robes flashed a cold light in his eyes, reached out a little, and first sacrificed a cyan wishful, instantly emitting countless cyan gods, forming a cyan mask, while everyone was caged inside. It sounded like something was flying, but it was very empty. It didn't look like a monk or magic weapon, nor a monster. The rest of the white robe and others were staring coldly, their eyes flashing violently. Just between the 2 breaths, the monks had seen a light appear in the fuchsia thick fog, and at the same time, a terrifying murderous intention that made all of them feel horrified, swept across. Who? Bai Robe's face was heavy, and he stretched out his hand a little. An indigo-colored light flashed away from him. Kill. In the fuchsia mist, there was suddenly an extremely cold voice with no slight emotional color, just like the divine iron rubbing. At the same time as the sound rang, a shattered indigo bloom spread out from the fuchsia thick fog, and a figure appeared. What is this? The white robe waited suddenly for everyone's eyes. This figure is not a human at all, but an image of an ancient god of war wearing broken armor, exuding a dim light of his body, exuding a very old and vicissitudes of breath, completely like an iron statue of god of war, underground. I didn't know how long it was buried, and dug it out again. There is no breath of blood, but whether it is a broken armor, an ancient soldier holding a spear in his hand, or the body of this person, there is a faint flash of godliness. In theory, it should be like the ancestor of the sword. Ancestor is like the incarnation of mind, but from this ancient of war, he can't feel any will, mind, only the killing intention that makes people feel cold. This is very different from Shen Nian incarnation and Shen Qian fashion. And from the breath of this decaying ancient god of war, I could not feel the breath of Shen Qian, or the breath of a true fairy. This makes people feel like this is like a fierce soldier who came alive, not like a monk. Kill. As soon as the rotten ancient god of war manifested, these monks were shocked and hadn't figured out what it was. A hollow and cold voice came out from the mouth of the ancient god of war at the same time. The rotten spear-like ancient soldier stroked. Oh, the 2 blue-robed Jindan monks who were closest to the rotten ancient of war didn't even have time to scream, and were immediately beaten into fly ash. The horrified light flashed in the eyes of several Shen Xianda Neng, casting spells almost simultaneously. The white robe was able to open its mouth, and 7 indigo blue lights were shot like a peacock. They shot down from the air and enveloped the area where the ancient of war was a few hundred feet away. In front of him, the old man wearing an ivory robe stretched out his hand, but hid a green sail-like jurisdiction. The emerald green young Xiandanenge behind the white robe had sacrificed a fist-sized blue bead, a piece of Xian ice-like brilliance, manifested around the body of the ancient warlord. The other three divine profound powers each shot a golden yellow tide-like jurisdiction, a black beam of divine light, and hundreds of flying silver silk lights. A total of 6 Shenqian mighty shots, and the white robe and the old ways wearing ivory-colored robes are obviously Shengxuan's five-fold power. The power is naturally different, the void seems to be completely frozen. Kill. But the rotten ancient of war seemed to be unaffected at all, still spitting out a hollow and cold voice, and a rotten spear in his hand. With the sound of boo, the void trembles like a rag, and all the power of these great mysterious powers can be completely swept away. The white robe's powerful face changed sharply. With a stroke of his right hand, 5 nails flew out of his hand and turned into 5 blood-red divine lights, slashing fiercely at this rotten ancient god of war. The decaying ancient of war still has no emotional color. The decaying ancient spear in his hand is just a shock, and all 5 blood-red divine lights burst. At the same time, just a flash, this decaying ancient god of war actually spanned nearly 100 miles directly, and just like the void footwork across the void, suddenly went to the inside of the blue mask. Boom! Neither the divine profound power nor the Jindan monk are weak. In an instant, countless strong powers broke out, and this rotten ancient god of war was beaten and flew out. But at the same time, all the monks on this side turned pale. The power of so many gods Xiandaneng and Jindan monk, they clearly overwhelmed this decaying ancient god of war, who did not know what, and beat him all out. But this rotten ancient god of war has a strange halo of yellow halo on his body, also radiating out at the same time, even as permeable as a star ray. The defensive magic weapon and excited defensive spell he had hurriedly sacrificed on Friday by the Jindan monk wearing a blue vestment actually did not play any blocking role at all, and was attacked by the faint yellow halo. Monk Jindan in the blue vestment suddenly ages at an alarming rate, grows into a skeleton, and then suddenly collapses into a mass of fly ash. Not only the physical bodies of the 5 Jindan monks, but also the robes and magical sacrifices of the 5 of them fell on the ground, and they also showed decay, exuding a long-term atmosphere, as if they had experienced thousands of years at once. The same time goes by. What is this? Seeing this scene at a glance, and then looking at the decaying ancient of war, almost all of these monks lost their voices and cried out. The decayed ancient of war that had just flew out had already stopped in the void, without any damage at all, and at that moment, the horrible dizzy yellow halo had appeared. Boom! Just a flash, this decaying ancient of war appeared directly in the cyan mask, and flew out again. But like last time, all the 4 Jindan monks who were touched by the dim yellow halo on this decaying ancient god of war, all decayed and turned grey, and even Jindan did not stay, and the vests and magic weapons on his body also changed. It was decaying. Allied leader. What to do? Seeing such a scene, several Shenqian Mengneng were all sweaty, and turned their heads in horror as they watched the white robe. At this time, several gods and great powers have already felt it. The faint yellow halo is an extremely strange vitality power, giving people a sense of the power of the region combined, and there I feel that I can't resist the attack of this dim yellow halo. If they are deceived by this rotten ancient god of war, they will certainly not be able to resist it. Only go back inside. Let's talk in the circle of white aura. Thinking of the way back at this moment has been blocked by this monster who did not know where it came from. The extremely white robe with a very blue face was able to grind his teeth and screamed. All 5 fingers of the right hand flew out and became the 5 indigo divine lights, like the 5 indigo divine cords, wrapped up the rotten ancient of war. After the 5 fingers flew out, the broken finger grew quickly again. At the same time, the white robe had nothing to stop, and immediately swept up the steps above him. The distance of more than 10 miles was also instantaneous for this white robe and other people. When the white robe and the group of monks behind him just saw a vertical oval white aura in the front, the rear was faint. The yellow brilliance has already appeared. Seeing this, the white robe was able to immediately grit his teeth, and suddenly pierced into the white aura of light in front. If any chapter content is not displayed, please visit to read. Tip: you can search for 0.academy00sy or 00sy in Baidu to visit this site. The site address is. To facilitate reading this book next time, you can click Add Bookmark below to record this reading record, and you can directly read this chapter next time you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Remember that the more updates you share, the faster. Mobile phone users, please visit Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Ziwei. Chapter 1238. Lord Snowhawk. Dragon Legend. Super Soldier. Cultivation of Rain and Clouds. Budo Supreme. King Yanjai. My neighbor is a banshee. Xianmu Legend. Does anyone other than us come in, and people like Tianzhu Shenjun have already done so? When the group of monks in the white robe had clenched their teeth and penetrated into the oval white aura in front of them, Wei Suo and his party had already passed through the incomparably huge mountain that gave people an unreal feeling. Where the weird humanoid monster killed a group of Templars, they frowned. Although the strange humanoid monster has swallowed up the remaining limbs of those who are fighting against the Fire Alliance, the broken vestment on the ground, the bloodstains, and the blood in the air can be felt by a monk of the Sea Realm. There was a fight not long ago here, let alone the perception of Wei Suo and others. It doesn't seem to be an ordinary opponent. Our monks here in the Backfire League were all above the Golden Dan realm. Biming Shenjun is still consuming the Zantai Linglan, who has no strength to scream, a respectful answer on one side. Let me see who is doing it here, and see where they are by the way. Wei Suo's consciousness swept through several times to make sure that there were no other monks around. He didn't even waste time. He reached out a hand and sacrificed the Tianhai Shenlan mirror, which was originally Huangdaejun. What is this? The scene reflected in the mirror of Tianhai Shenlan surprised Wei Suo and others. There is no trace of Tianzhu Shenjun and Shenlan Wangyan returning to the paintings, but a green humanoid monster flying through a vast and amazing ruins. It seems that except for a faint green aura, other than that, there is no feeling that the vitality fluctuations are coming out at all. This is a monster? The monks here are all killed by this monster. The old man in green robe couldn't help but call out the first one. How does it feel like a spirit beast? Wei Suo frowned, very suspicious. Although the shape of the humanoid monster in this picture is very different from the appearance of the spirit beast, the green light on that body is the same as the humanoid monster. The insidious and cunning feeling gave him a sudden connection between the monster and the bite beast. It seems that 9 out of 10 are spirit eaters that have approached the transformation. Ling Longtian sneered when he looked at the green humanoid monster in the picture. In our time, so much power has never seen approach. The disguised spirit eater can't expect to see one now. Transform the spirit beast, Wei Suo and Han Weiwei and others suddenly stunned. The rupture of the sky dome is indeed the most terrifying chance for many high-level monsters. No wonder there are many god-level monsters. The witch goddess and Jiya looked at each other, and they all reacted. Almost most of the high-level monsters can devour the body and blood of the monk to absorb the aura and improve the cultivation. For most monsters, the monk is originally a delicious food and elixir, and the monster is a monster. Can even devour the monk's golden pill, devour spirit stones to practice. Before the sky dome was broken, these monsters could not enter the sky dome at all. There was still a shortage of rations. However, after the sky dome broke down, in these 200 years, these monsters did not know how many monks they had devoured, but also I don't know how many spirit stones I got, and even some of the spirit stone veins have been destroyed by these monsters, so the strength of these monsters is faster than ever. What is the strength of this kind of monster that you have cultivated to close to the shape? How is the wisdom? Wei Suo asked Ling Longtian. Now he doesn't care where this close to formed spirit eater came from, he just cares if he can deal with it. According to some of our great powers at that time, the real monster, the strength is roughly equivalent to the real fairy. This monster has not yet been truly transformed. It is estimated that at most it is the 5 peaks of Shenxian Linglongtian knows Weisuo's meaning quickly explained. This kind of monster that is close to metamorphosis is no different from the monk, but it is still natural to regard the monk as a prey. The nature of cruelty and murder is unchanged, and the fighting method is compared. Generally, monks of the same level are more difficult to deal with. The inside of the float is too big, and we can't see where it is at all. Let's talk about it first. Hearing Linglongtian's words, Weisuo murmured, then nodded toward all the people, closed the mirror of Tianhaishenlan, and a group of people continued to move forward in the direction of the overcast wind. The strength of the 5 peaks of Shenxian is of course no threat to Weisuo, but the ruins in the picture are endless. There is no end in sight at all, there is no obvious reference at all. It is difficult to determine where this monster is, only digged inside to say more. Although the black wind in the front was extremely fierce, but Weisuo's consciousness swept in, there was no hindrance, and with his perception, he even felt that the overcast wind band seemed to be caused by the wind in the 9-day wind layer. Made. So in front of this overwhelming wind, there was no pause at all, but Weisuo launched the Wujian sword classic alone, and a round of sword gas crushed all the winds approaching, and easily passed through. It's really too big, Han Weiwei suddenly stunned as soon as he passed through the billowing black wind. The front is completely glanced at the past, and the ruins at the end are not seen at all. It feels completely like a large city gathered together, and then destroyed here. The 4 directions of southeast, northwest, and north are all the same, endless. Even if the close-up spirit eater is in this ruin, it is impossible to see where it is. This is simply another world. The powerful means of the aristocrats are really unimaginable. Chang Sunjing and Yuan Yin Patriarch and others could not help but marvel. Such a magnificent scene also made them have to believe that the floating man of the Baron was made of little stars. Linglongtian, since this futu was made of small stars photographed, is there a star core in it? Shui Linger suddenly thought a little and asked Linglongtian softly. Did you think of using the star core to refine powerful magic weapons? Linglongtian looked at Shui Linger and shook his head. Although there should be, but there is no possibility, either the star core has been taken out, or its own power can be used. A strong prohibition is placed and it is unlikely to survive intact. Wei Daiyu, there is a clear sense of monk passing in that direction. At this time, Li Ruohe released a fiery cat-shaped monster, and after seeing that monster sniff a few times, he stretched his paws in one direction. Master Li Gong, Yu Huo Ling cat is so cute, can you borrow me to play for 2 days? Weisuo immediately nodded his head and escaped a roll. The group flew in the direction indicated by Li Ruohe, but Han Weiwei was one. A strange look was found on his face, staring at the cat-like monster. Speaking of words, Li Ruohe's cat-shaped monster is indeed very cute. His long red hair looks extremely supple, and his eyes are dark and black, and he can't express the spirit. But when I heard Han Weiwei say this cat-shaped monster beast, Han Weiwei and grunted, obviously dissatisfied with what Han Weiwei borrowed to play for 2 days. It's so cute. Han Weiwei could not move her eyes when she saw the look of this panda. Seeing Han Weiwei's appearance, the cat was even more frightened, and hid in the sleeve of Li Ruohe's vestment. Really, my sister is not a bad person. Look, my sister has a younger sister to play with you. Han Weiwei patted Nabeo and released Xuanhuan Yunwei. As a result, the Lingma felt Xuanhuan Yunwei's breath, and almost uttered a scream. It seems that you are really a bad guy in it, and deliberately scared it. Everyone saw Han Weiwei, who was extremely depressed, suddenly couldn't help but smile. Seeing Xuanhuan Yunwei, Weisuo moved his heart and released both Yangzi bird and Qingluan. The spirit birds such as Yangzi bird and Qingluan have the ability to perceive danger even above the monk. In this dangerous place, they are also very useful. After releasing Yangzi bird and Qingluan, Wei Suo's consciousness was released and no abnormalities were found. The pedestrians walked through the ruins. Although they were all amazed, the atmosphere was very relaxed. However, this float is really unimaginable. This ruin gives Wei Suo and others the feeling that it is the place where the Aborigines usually live and practice quiet rooms. Then, a huge mountain appeared in front. This mountain range is almost identical to the mountain range that Wei Suo and others had come in before. That is to say, this huge mountain range is likely to be a circular mountain range, and it does not know how many miles. What happened? And just after this mountain range appeared in the sight of everyone, the witch goddess and others found that Wei Suo was obviously a meal, as if something was found. There is a space-like prohibition in that place. It may be a teleportation circle. Weiss nodded, not much to say, and led the way ahead. After flying about 300 or 400 miles, all people could see clearly. Behind a ruined stone ruin of more than a dozen people, there were 4 white platforms with 4 oval white auras above. The crystal is shining like 4 oval white crystals. Won't there be any unique space? Han Weiwei's face suddenly turned into a bitter gourd face as soon as he saw the 4 groups of white aura. It shouldn't be, just send them to other places in this floating pontoon separately. Wei Suo and Ling Longtian looked closely at the 4 white auras for a while, and they all said affirmatively. Both of them felt that although this white aura of light looked extremely unique, the law of vitality was not much different from the general teleportation circle, just like a teleportation circle that was always in an excited state. Princess Li Gong, Yu Huo Ling Ling Cat can perceive that they have entered which teleportation circle. Wei Suo determined that this should be 4 teleportation circles, and looked at Li Ruohe and asked. Li Ruohe patted the Huo Wu Ling Cat a few times, but after a while, the Huo Wu Ling Cat sniffed his paws a few times, then shook his head helplessly. This Huo Wu Ling Cat can only be sure that Tianzhu Shenjun and others have arrived here, and it is impossible to determine which teleportation circle they entered. It seems that only one of them went in and looked at Wei Suo, pondered for a moment and looked at Ling Longtian, Ganjiame, which one is better, advanced. Anyway, I don't know. It's all about luck, whatever is the same. Ling Longtian frowned and grinned at his teeth. Then it will be the advanced one. Wei Suo knew that there was nothing to choose from, and went directly to the first white light group on the left side in front of him. Go, there was no hesitation. Wei Suo and Ling Longtian were at the forefront, and the rest were all behind him, between breaths, all invested in this white light group selected by Wei Suo. This. As previously expected, as soon as Wei Suo was involved in this white light group, he immediately determined that it was a teleportation circle. With only a flower in front of him, he immediately recovered Qingming and teleported to another place, but he had not had time to see clearly. The sight in front of me, the consciousness had just swept out, and the whole body was a shock that I couldn't help. The place where the teleportation is sent is similar to the star vitality before. It is indeed still on the top of the float, but just another place in the float. But in addition to the same strong star vitality and sky fire, Lei Gang breath, this in an instant, Wei Suo felt a touch of aura. This place, like the original Haixian city, was full of auras. If any chapter content is not displayed, please visit to read. Tip: you can search for 0.academy00sy or 00sy in Baidu to visit this site. The site address is. To facilitate reading this book next time, you can click Add Bookmark below to record this reading record, and you can directly read this chapter next time you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Remember that the more updates you share, the faster. Mobile phone users, please visit. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 1239. Lord Snowhawk. Dragon Legend. Super Soldier. Cultivation of rain and clouds. Buddho Supreme. King Yanjai. My neighbor is a banshee. Xianmu legend. What appeared in front of Weisuo was actually an independent mountain. The mountain is not high, only 600 or 700 feet high, but it is unusually green, with a variety of plants from the top to the foot of the mountain, without any human breath. The hills are surrounded by plains, but various plants grow unusually dense and lush. Why saw this? The witch goddess, Jia, and others were all instantly covered with incredible looks. Obviously, like Weisuo, they also felt for the first time that there was a trace of heaven and earth aura here. What is this teleportation circle? We come in, but how can we get out? At this time, the old man in green robe also screamed without tears. Behind Weisuo and others, there was actually a wild jungle, only a white mist in the distance, caged like a wall. Within their line of sight, there was no crystal white clusters and other teleportation arrays. Hiss. Weisuo took a deep breath, carefully staring at the place where he was standing. The old man in green robe said the strangeness of this teleportation circle, he didn't pay much attention to it. Judging from the current situation, it should be an ordinary short-distance teleportation circle. And surely it was in the floating bud, even if he didn't send the magic circle out, with his current ability and Ling Longtian's ability, as long as he moved in one direction, he could break through the prohibition, and he could always find a margin and a way out. Now the key to this place is full of aura of heaven and earth, but it is a bit incredible. Does this inside actually have a spiritual aura similar to Haixian City, and those white mists are also used to confine the spiritual aura in this? But with the release of the consciousness, and touching the white fog in the distance behind and the mountain ahead, Weisuo couldn't help but be surprised. He felt that the aura at the top of the mountain in front of him was the most intense. A trace of aura was like a spring rain, and it fell from the top of the mountain, and when this trace of aura spread to the white fog like the wall, it was cannot see through. This place gave him the feeling that it was almost similar to Haixian City, but obviously there were not many traces of the monks' residence. It was obviously not used for monks' cultivation, but it was like a botanical garden dedicated to growing plants. Is this an aphrodisiac garden arranged by the Baron? The aura inside is just used to nourish and nurture all kinds of aphrodisiac. Suddenly, this thought just appeared in Weisuo's mind, and the witch goddess, Jia, Han Weiwei, Chang Sun Zairu and others all exclaimed in silence. Dawang Yinlong grass. Weisuo immediately turned his attention from the heaven and earth aura to the plants growing here, but with a glance, Weisuo's eyes suddenly became stunned. In the barren grass less than 100 feet in front of him, a silver grass grows. This silver grass is only a few inches long. The blades of grass are like small scales, but the stems and leaves at the top are long. It is a little like a dragon head, which looks like a silver dragon from a distance. It is recorded in the ancient materia medica obtained by the young man in the Chinese clothing that has been inherited by the wild people that Dawang Yinlong grass can solve almost any high-level fire demon fire poison, and high-level fire demon can only use Dawang silver dragon. The medicinal liquid of the grass is made for more than 3 hours, and it will be exhausted. The monk can even be used as a refining pill, and the power of a large wild silver dragon of more than 200 years is enough to make 10-8 tier fire demon. 10-8 level middle level fire demon pill, this is already extremely amazing. After all, not everyone is like Weisuo to the real immortal state, and it is still a double true immortal Dharma body. 10-100 high level demon pills are nothing. If you know the spirit pill made out of ordinary 6 level demon pill, just it is already a very useful Taoist spirit pill for Jindan monks, which can reduce a lot of hard work, and the spirit pill made out of the demon pill above the intermediate level of level 7 is already a spirit pill of the fairy step. Rarely some danfang can be refined, and in the past, it was simply priceless without market. Although the group of alchemy old men stayed in Zihai City this time, Wei Suo had already shown the recorded ancient materia medica to Ji Ya, Shui Ling Han Wei, and others. Now they follow Wei Suo's eyes. After arriving at this great wild silver dragon grass, he suddenly started to look at the other plants in sight. As a result, Ji Ya and others cried out in excitement. Biluo Xiangguo. 9-star little mist grass. Blood jade poria. Abandoned ancient jade bamboo. No, ever since he entered this float, he has always been scared, and the old man in green robe who has been eager to run out has been completely stunned, and does not want to run. Husband, what should I do? Even the always clever Shui Linger was a little stupid, and he shouted a title that was usually called only when she and Weizhuo were tempted by Weizhuo. Just a glance in the past, everyone is within a few hundred feet. Even if you search carefully in the wilderness, there are at least a dozen rare ancient elixirs that are extremely difficult to find. This place is clearly a spiritual garden arranged by the former baron. Different from ordinary spirit gardens, this spirit garden of the famine has cultivated some ancient plants with unknown functions from the outside world. If you change other powerful powers to enter here, in addition to thinking that these ancient plants are peculiar, they are basically I don't know the function. There may not be any extra ideas at all, but for Wei Suo and others who have the ancient herbal medicine in hand, this is simply a step into a heap of elixir. What else can I do? As soon as it's useful, pick your wife. Hearing Shui Linger's dumbfounded question, Wei Suo, who was also stunned, reacted immediately, with a strange cry, reaching out and grabbing, immediately photographed the big wild silver dragon grass and put it in a white jade pill bottle. A purge of water spirits directly condensed a stream of pure water, filling the entire white jade pill bottle. This is 60,000 or 70,000 years ago, the territory of the Huan clan. Even if the Huan clan has no one, and Wei Suo did not leave this place for the enlightenment of the younger monks, of course, if you can use it, you must use it by yourself. Let me talk about it. And at the beginning, they explored treasures in Qingcheng Ruin, Liruohe, Qilong Mountain, Qingping and others. They also found a nearly intact spirit garden left, but the space broke apart, and until now Wei Suo still regrets it. Incomparably, I don't know how many elixirs are not available. Now that there is such a place for the barbarians, how could Wei Suo let it go, and quickly scrape as much as you can before scraping it? Fortunately, this time I want to get a good shave, and get a full shave. Is there any high-level fire demon pill on your body? As soon as the Wang Yinlong grass was made, Wei Suo couldn't help but yell at Chang Sunjing and everyone else. Yes, Chang Sunjing and others all reacted at the moment, and they all looked ecstatic. Although the high-level demon pill of all levels may not be able to refine the spirit pill, most of the pill liquid can be used to refine magical instruments, especially the 7-level or higher demon pill. It is naturally impossible for ordinary monks to obtain it. Discarded. Although they did not deliberately collect, but the addition of a dozen or so high-level fire demon pill is at least. Get up. Wei Suo immediately spotted the pill bottle with De Wang Yinlongko in front of Chang Sunjing and others, although this De Wang Yinlongko was not suitable for other ancient plants among hundreds of squares. It's quite outstanding, but this time he was really too excited. Ah! This is even more amazing than a dragon mound. This time it really didn't come in vain. Boy, we ran away after we rolled the things here. The old man in green robe was completely mad. It is not just that they are within a few hundred feet of their surroundings. This is true of the entire mountain, including the wilderness where the mountain is nearly 1,000 miles away. Brother Ye, Xiao Ei sister, please don't help you find it, and refine these ancient potions directly. In this spiritual garden of the famine, there were only some cracks on the ground, and it seemed that it was only subjected to some violent shocks, but there was no major damage, so that after just a few dozen breaths, Weizhuo couldn't help but put some wild the elixir hit Yes Yao Zheng and Ye Wei and others. Han Wei, Ling you also directly started to refine these elixir, and after a while, Wei Suo couldn't help saying this to Han Weiwei and Ji Yat and others. Because the amount of the ancient antidote is so amazing. And although the ranks of 60% to 70% of the ancient antidote are not terrifying, it is not particularly striking for monks above the 3/4 level of Shenxian, but for monks below Shenxian, the power of these elixirs is extremely high. Is useful, and because there are too many of them, there are also a lot of ancient antidote that can be quickly refined. At the beginning, Wei Suo felt that some of the elixir that could be directly refined should improve Yeguwei and others who were relatively low, but with his search, it was almost non-stop. The amount of the ancient antidote like the Daejiao and Xianja elixir made his scalp a little numb. Not only the Ye brothers and sisters, but also Ji Yat and all others are expected to greatly improve their cultivation practices. This spirit garden did not know how many years the accumulation of the barons. It was estimated that it was equivalent to the background. Not all barons can use the elixir inside, but now this barn actually gave Wei Suo their batchets all over. And there is also an aura within it. Although Wei Suo hasn't gone to take a closer look, the amount of Reiki seems to be only a lot more than the remnant spiritual vein of Haixian City's former fracture. Wei Suo now wants to not let the spirit vein pass, eat dry and wipe it out, so that Ji Yat and them will soon break through and cultivate here, and when they break through, they will absorb a lot of heaven and earth spirits. Death Rogue. Just when Wei Suo was so excited that his scalp was tingling, he shouted and asked Han Weiwei and Shui Linger to immediately refine the ancient antidote that could be quickly refined, but Han Weiwei shouted at him anxiously and shyly. There was a cry. What's wrong? Wei Suo was unable to respond for a while. Zijing Liulai, Ji Ya blushed and quickly transmitted to Wei Suo's ear, reminding Wei Suo. Wei Suo reacted this time. The exercises performed by Han Weiwei Zijing Liulai were special. Every breakthrough of Jin Dan would produce a large amount of Yuan Yin, which must be resolved with him. You can't miss this kind of chance, or you will be blamed for the fate of the sky. Shui Linger smiled immediately, and said with some misfortune. Far away Ling Longtian grinned at his teeth, and after looking at the mountain, he spit out 3 words very simply. The meaning is extremely obvious. If you want to do double cultivation, go to the top of the hill. That's it, it's better if it's not far away. How can it not be practiced? Wei Suo also ran freely, reached out a bit, and ordered the 2 ancient potions in front of Han Weiwei. If any chapter content is not displayed, please visit to read. Tip: you can search for 0.academy00sy or 00sy in Baidu to visit this site. The site address is. To facilitate reading this book next time, you can click Add Bookmark below to record this reading record, and you can directly read this chapter next time you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Remember that the more updates you share, the faster. Mobile phone users, please visit. Path to Heaven. Author, Wu Zy. Chapter 1240. Lord Snowhawk. Dragon Legend. Super Soldier. Cultivation of Rain and Clouds. Budo Supreme. King Yanjai. My neighbor is a banshee. Xian Mu Legend. No accident happened. Weizhuo went all the way. It was really a collection of ancient antiquity potions, soft hands, and madness, which completely made up for the regrets of the Qingcheng ruins that day. Super treasure is at the front, no matter where the heavenly god Divine King and others are at the moment, at least we must collect all the rare ancient plants that are usually rare here. Yang Qing, Qingluan, these few ancient antiquity potions are useful to you, and you can refine them immediately. Several ancient antiquity elixirs quickly flew out of Wei Suo's hands and were spotted in front of Yang Zi Bird and Qingluan. It is useful for ancient and spiritual plants, and there are also many ancient medicines that are useful for spirit animals such as Yang Zi Birds and Blue Luan. Thank you, boss. This time it was not only the Yang Zi Bird, but even the blue Luan transformed by the succubus deer in the past was sincerely thanking Wei Rope. Originally this Jing Luan has always been forced by the situation. Although Weizhuo is the main, he is more or less unhappy in his heart, but following Weizhuo, he has always been benefited, much better than his own cultivation. Until now, this Jing Luan it is truly sincerely convinced of Weisuo, willing to dominate Weisuo. Fijun, I am about to break through. Shui Linger screamed suddenly into Weisuo's ear. At this moment, Huang Daijun and Chang Sunjing and others have arranged a magic circle at the foot of the mountain that can isolate the unfavorable energy. Shui Linger and others all directly refine the ancient elixir that can improve cultivation and refining speed. At this moment, Shui Linger, who is already about to break through itself, is the first to reach the breakthrough moment. Shui Linger is also blushing with excitement now, except that he hasn't lost his gait as before, but he is calling his husband, not her husband. Direct breakthrough, Wei Suo haha smiled and waved his hand coquettishly. Here, the aura of heaven and earth is more abundant than Haixian city. There is no need for several people to gather together to increase the suction power of the volume as much as possible. Moreover, the water linger is a breakthrough during the Jindan period. There is no danger at all. The most important thing is that I am afraid that Shui Linger and others have never broken through the quantity of ancient antidote in this spiritual garden. It is good. Shui Linger, who used to be the lover's dream of almost all young monks in Tianqian continent, responded with a beep. Boom, it was obvious that Shui Linger was deliberately pressed at that juncture. Almost as soon as her delicate voice fell, her body immediately sighed. There was a strong wind in the garden, and countless auras suddenly surging towards her and Han Weiwei's position. Hiss. Almost at the same time, Wei Suo almost shivered with excitement. Halfway up the mountain, an old plant with 3 golden yellow fruits was carefully taken by him, and even the rocks and mud below were photographed. Then he was a very soft water spirit rushing away, washing away all the rubble and mud, and even the smallest trace of rhizome was not broken, not let go. This is a wild fruit. According to the records in the Furigo Materia Medica, the monks of Shengxuan's heavy cultivating a fruit of the holy ancient holy king can upgrade their first level cultivation. This wild ancient Kishan fruit only produces a fruit every 20,000 years. It is estimated that when the wild people planted it, even one fruit did not bear. Now these 3 wild ancient Kishan fruits are all cheaper than Weizhuo. The ancestors of Xuanhuan, the prince of Yinyin and the real person of Fi Wang. These 3 ancient holy kings are of great use to you. You should refine them immediately, otherwise the spirit will be lost. With a cry, 3 water spirits rushed out, wrapped in 3 wild ancient Kishan fruits, and went to the 3 people that Wei Suo said. These 3 people are relatively low in the power of Shenxian, and the life is long. There are not many yuan, and refining this ancient Kishan fruit is most useful. And the remaining jade-like branches and leaves and white and delicate roots, Wei Suo swallowed by himself. In fact, most of the elixir, including these ancient elixirs of unknown function, have various means of absorbing and concentrating auras. The arrangement of auras in the spiritual garden is only an aid, just to make these elixirs grow better. For example, this ancient Kishan fruit, recorded in the ancient Materia Medica, is to absorb and transform the aura from the vitality of the stars. The fruits, branches, leaves and roots all contain amazing aura, but the aura of the fruit is extremely pure, and ordinary monks can be refined, but the unfavorable energy in the branches, leaves and roots is very much. But for Weizhuo, who is now stronger than Tianlong, this is naturally nothing. With the sound of boom, Wei Suo swallowed the stems, leaves and roots of Huanggu Qishangguo in a single bit, and immediately opened up the pits on his body, spewing out the unfavorable energy like a large group of malaria. Good guy. At the same time, Wei Suo couldn't help swallowing again. The aura in the stems, leaves and roots of this wild ancient Kishan fruit is extremely fast. It is like a river flowing into his real element. It seems to be at least equivalent to the 2 8-level high-level water demon. Reiki. It's my pleasure to be able to make friends with Wei Dao at this time. The ancestors of Xuanhuan, Jiyan Zhenjun, and Yahuangzhen swallowed the 3 wild ancient Qi Tianqiu respectively, and suddenly realized that they were different. Qi changed his face. After a salute to Wei Suo, all sat down. Ah! Boss, I seem to be breaking through. Boss, I seem to be breaking through soon. Almost at the same time, 2 anxious shouts sounded. Your sister. Now Wei Suo couldn't help but rolled his eyes, screaming in a depressed mood. It's actually a simple 2-person brain. Zhen Chongming and Zhu Xiaochun, a pair of simple brains, are going to break through Jin Dan at this time. The 2 of you first refine one plant and then break through. Don't talk nonsense, stick to your heart and resist all interference from the demons. Wei Suo extremely silently pointed the 2 yellow grasses to the 2. The 2 pale yellow spirit grasses are called elixir, and the ancient herbal medicine records that they have almost the same function as the purple fox flowers. Originally, Wei Suo found 4 plants here, and they were not willing to give these 2 people use. But these 2 men ate a lot of bullet in Tian Dan, and broke through Jin Dan in this place, and there were more unfavorable strengths from above 9 days. If they were not given, these 2 guys were very likely to fall. Wei Suo still couldn't bear to think about it, and he could only throw out 2 strains with great depression. Got it, boss. Both Zhen Chongming and Zhu Xiaochun had no idea at all, and immediately swallowed one by one, then closed their eyes and began to refine as if they were dead. Boom. Boom. In less than half a cup of tea, both of them shone a dazzling light. Immediately, the white clouds above were tumbling. Although this kind of vitality shock and entrainment could not destroy the prohibition in this spiritual garden, many of the water vapor and aura were entrained to form 2 dragons. Roll, scrolling above the 2. It's not chickens and dogs ascending to the sky, but pigs are also ascending to the sky. Seeing this scene, the old man in green robe couldn't help but screamed in his heart. It may be that the brain is simple, but there are few demons. The breakthrough of the 2 people Jindan seems to be no obstacle at all. It seems to be Ningdan and there are no problems. I will break through too. Suddenly, there was a weak sound, but it was the blue Luan. Boo, a blue light flashed from King Luan's body. Immediately, the blue Luan's body became a blue fire circle, and a powerful spirit burst out constantly. Since most of them have been absorbed by Yangtze bird, Qing Luan has finally completely recovered his strength at this moment and returned to level 9. I'm going to break through too, Jiya's voice also spread. I'm going to break through. Qi Longshan's voice also rang. Me too. A loud voice and the roar of real and vital energy rang continuously. This is totally a scene that makes people completely crazy, and one person after another keeps breaking through. It seems that Yegyu Wei will soon be Jin Dan. Chang Sun Jing and Chang Sun Zairu and others were completely speechless. As Ji Ya and others continued to make breakthroughs one after another, everyone was like a vortex. The power of attracting the heaven and earth aura was more and more amazing, and the concentration of the aura around them was more than the concentration of the place where the aura overflowed on the top of the mountain. I don't know how many times. Not to mention the old ancient elixir that Wei Suo and Yin Liwa and others are still looking for. The intensity of that kind of aura is just that. Zhou Tianjing, a monk who divides the conception of the realm, the speed of cultivation in it will be amazing. Death Rogue. In one of the most pleasantly surprised sounds, another sound was low and low. The sound of clenching teeth was mixed in. Go, let's look over there. Wei Suo's face is extremely thick, as if others really don't know what's going on, and Han Weiwei, who has just broken through and rebuilt it, and the temperature of his body has been sharply cold, escaped from the volume and disappeared in the eyes of everyone. On the contrary, Xin Yulan and Chang Sun Zairu's faces were vaguely guessing what was going on. Boom. Boom. In the circle of Jiyat and others, there are still people who break from time to time. But Wei Suo's movements were extremely fast. At this time, he had fallen far into a dense forest behind the mountain, and he was extremely skilled in digging a deep hole and a quiet room. Since Han Wei and others were put into Dazushan-made bottles, he still has no time to kiss fangs. Now that he has the brightest reason to cultivate the most and save the most, Wei Suo suddenly exerted his domineering god's domineering. With a snap, Han Wei was stripped into a smooth little white sheep. Then Wei Suo immediately couldn't wait to vigorously get up. I'm going to break through too. Just a moment later, Wei Suo also yelled in the ear of Han Wei, who was trembling. His Suansha Yinkai is also a sudden increase. If any chapter content is not displayed, please visit to read. Tip: you can search for 0.academy00sy or 00sy in Baidu to visit this site. The site address is. To facilitate reading this book next time, you can click Add Bookmark below to record this reading record, and you can directly read this chapter next time you open the bookshelf. Please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Remember that the more updates you share, the faster. Mobile phone users, please visit